Sure. I mean, I think the biggest misconception is actually fairly reasonable, which is that most Satanists don't worship Satan, right? And I honestly can't be that angry at people for being confused about that. It's very confusing,
I didn't
right?
know either. Yeah, I didn't
Yeah,
know.
and the Satanists are like, well, do Pentecostals worship Pentecost or but Satanism came about in the 60s. In the 60s, everybody thought religion was dying. They thought, maybe we've got a few more years of religion and then we're going to be like Star Trek. Everybody was watching Star Trek in the 60s, right? People weren't necessarily happy about this. They just figured that was the way things were going. And there was this big occult revival with the 60s counterculture of, this is the beginning of Wicca, and astrology is getting really popular and stuff like that. And this novel comes out in 1967 called Rosemary's Baby, about witches sort of, having the Antichrist baby. And it becomes a movie, and the movie's huge. It's the first horror movie to win an Oscar, right? And there's this guy, Anton LaVey, and he lives in San Francisco. And he's just Anton LaVey, if he lived today, he would have been a podcaster. He would have had a highly successful podcast that just talked about spooky stuff. But in San Francisco, you could go to his house and you could pay $2 and he would give you a lecture on vampires or something like that. And somebody suggests to him, you could start your own religion. And eventually, someone from Avon Books said, there's this novel, Rosemary's Baby. We sold so many copies. It's about witchcraft. You know about all this spooky stuff. You write a book. You write us a book that we could sell. So he says, I'll give it a shot. So he writes the Satanic Bible. And that's where the Satanic Bible was basically commissioned, right, by a literary agent to sell to hippies interested in spooky stuff, right? So in that book, there is some genuine philosophy in there, but Anton LaVey was, he did not believe in God or the devil. He had kind of, some people say he had kind of woo-woo ideas about kind of what he called magic, right? But for him, magic is just sort of almost kind of like the power of positive thinking or something, right? If you want something and you kind of know how people work, you can make it happen, right? But he did have some things that were very appealing in the 60s. He said, Christianity has taught you to be to be humble, to be ashamed of your sexual desires, so on. I want a religion that's about kind of acting really human, about embracing your pride, about embracing um, who you are sexually. If someone has wronged you and you're mad at them, it's okay to be angry at them, right? And there were always limits, right? He never said you can just go kill somebody, but you could do like a hex ritual on them and maybe make yourself feel better or something like that. He said rituals were decompression chambers, right? The other thing about Anton LaVey is he said that he used to work at a circus, and that he had this insight into being a carnival barker and manipulating people. So it was never clear with the Church of Satan, was he serious about this, or was he kind of manipulating people who wanted to become Satanists, right? So anyways, that becomes kind of Satanism. And